everybody. Welcome to The First for Us, a new podcast dedicated to The Last of Us, both a video game and a brand new HBO television show. Y'all know me. I'm the Chuckle Nugget from Gray 17, and with me is
Justin
and Kevin.
That's right. A couple of Gray 17 alums heard The Last of Us was out. A couple of big fans. I know Kevin and Justin, you've played the game a little bit before. I have not, even though I own it. Watched the first 2 episodes and was blown away and decided, let's talk about it. So real quick, The Last of Us is a 2013 action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony Entertainment. Development started in 2009 and was released in 2013. It received critical acclaim with praise for its narrative, gameplay, visuals, sound design, score, characterization, and depiction of female characters. It won numerous awards, including several Game of the Year awards, and has been cited as one of the best games ever made. It sold 1.3 million units its first week, and as of December 2022, has sold over 37 million copies, according to Naughty Dog. A sequel was released in 2020, The Last of Us Part 2, following some delays due to the pandemic. The Last of Us television adaptation was created by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann for HBO. It was filmed primarily in Alberta, Canada, from July 2021 to June 2022. The first season will consist of 9 episodes, written by Druckmann, who wrote and co-directed the video game. The first episode premiered on January 15, 2023, with a reported 4.7 million views the first day, the second largest number for HBO since 2010, and 22 million views within the first 12 days. Last week, HBO announced that it has been renewed for a second season, presumably following the sequel, although that is yet to be seen. So in this episode, we're going to talk about episodes 1 and 2 since they have already aired, with the plan being as the new episodes air, we'll jump on, share our thoughts, and then release that episode that week. Very quickly, I'll give a quick synopsis of episodes 1 and 2, and we can dive right in. So episode 1 begins in 2003. A mass fungal infection sparks a global pandemic. Joel flees with his daughter Sarah and brother Tommy. Sarah is killed by a soldier. 20 years later, Joel lives in the Boston quarantine zone managed by the Federal Disaster Response Agency, known as FEDRA, working as a smuggler with his partner Tess. When Tommy fails to connect them from Wyoming, they buy a car battery from a local dealer, Robert, but are double-crossed when he sells it to the Fireflies, a rebel group opposing FEDRA. Attempting to retrieve it, Joel and Tess discover Marlene, the Fireflies' leader, who begs them to take Ellie to the Massachusetts State House in exchange for a working truck. While sneaking out, the 3 are caught by a soldier who tests them for the infection, revealing Ellie is positive. Joel kills the soldier, and Ellie claims to be immune. Episode 2 picks up 2 days before the outbreak in Jakarta. A mycologist learns of the oncoming pandemic and advises the government to bomb the city to prevent it from spreading. In the present, Ellie explains to Joel and Tess that she is being transported west in hopes of being used to find a cure. Discovering the path to the state house is swarmed with infected, they cut through a museum where they are attacked by blind infected known as clickers. Ellie is bitten. They arrive at the state house but find the Fireflies dead. Tess reveals she was bitten while Ellie's bite begins to heal, proving her immunity. Joel shoots an infected, which alerts the swarm to their location. Tess convinces him to escape with Ellie while she stays behind, blowing up the building and killing herself along with the horde. That was a ton of exposition drop, which fortunately we won't have to do in any other episode moving forward outside of a brief synopsis. So since I have done a lot of the talking, I will immediately turn it over to you two. Tell me your thoughts wherever you want to begin.
I mean, I guess I'll start. The one thing that I thought was immediately the most interesting that grabbed me right away was the beginning of episode 1, actually, when you're picking up with, I would assume, 1960s, 1970s talk show, where, they're talking about different possible virus threats that, could possibly span the globe. And the one doctor was talking about, actually what frightens him the most is the possible of a fungal outbreak. And the only thing stopping a fungal outbreak was the fact that fungus couldn't survive in any host that by temperatures over 94 degrees, which humans, being at the 98 range, 98.6 range, always was kind of immune to that. And what fascinates me behind this is the kind of what may keep people up at night when they're watching this show, because my own girlfriend been spooked out by the fact that how possible can this be? What happens when the Earth warms up by a few degrees and fungus is supposed to mutate and evolve and could possibly start to live in human hosts and stuff like that. And that's something that like even she's been like kind of is spooky. Like this could honestly legitimately happen. We just went through one pandemic. How soon before maybe we get to another one? And so if that scene is actually really captivating just right off the bat, it makes it all seem real. And I think that's what I think they did a really good job in bringing people in right away going, you know what, some of this may be a little too soon for some viewers, despite, considering what we just went through. But I think that they started off on a fantastic tone. And I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Kevin talk a little bit.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk a little bit about the video game. I played it a little bit, not very much. So, but it was so many years ago, and I do own it too. But I just never got back to it. But I'm watching the show, and I realized that I've seen the scene where Sarah dies. And I was like, man, I really thought that the girl was his daughter all through the show. And man, I really got attached to that character already. And she wasn't on for very long. And and then she gets killed by the soldier. It was heartbreaking. But I mean, and then of course, you get into episode 2, more, and you're dealing with Anna Torv, who I like from Fringe. Really enjoyed Fringe, and that she was one of the main reasons for that. I was just like, man, she can't be long for this world either in this show. So that was kind of a bummer. But I've really been enjoying the show. Funny story though, my wife, she just thought it was a show about the fall of civilization, and she really doesn't like zombie stuff. And I just flaked and forgot about that. And I turned to her after like 10 minutes, right before they start revealing zombies. And I said, this is about zombies, right? And she goes, no, I thought it was about the fall of civilization. I was like, do you want to keep watching? She's like, okay. It was really funny. But she ended up liking it. I don't think it's going to be too gory, which is nice. You watch some zombie stuff, pick your director, and it can get pretty gory very quickly and just be, body horror real quick. But this has been a nice departure from that, in that they're doing it, but not so bad that it's unapproachable for people.
Did she watch episode 2?
Yeah.
I'm curious. So we can get into it a little bit later. I'm curious what she thought of that end scene, which haunts me now. Every time I think about it, it gives me the creeps, and it's one of the most affecting things I've ever seen, I think.
I don't know if she's lying to me, but she said that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, or that she was expecting after the first episode. So she seems like she's really enjoying the show. I know she was a big fan of Anna Torv as well, so that's a bummer that she's not going to be on the rest of the show. But again, you figure this show is going to be focusing the most on Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, so which is good, because I've really been enjoying their dynamic. We talk about things that we're hoping to see. I hope that their relationship will nicely develop and not too quickly, so that it feels natural, instead of in the next episode they're just like, hi daddy. I don't want to see that. Like, it needs to be natural.
I think it'll be okay, because I think history tells me that Pedro Pascal with a young cub is engrossing television.
Nice.
I was gonna bring that up too. Yeah, it's but I really think it's a traumatic factor for Joel, really, because here again, he regardless of the situation, he his big traumatic event is he thinks he failed to protect his daughter, and then now here he is presented with another young person who is reliant on him. And I think he's going to end up doing whatever it takes. And even all the references throughout the first 2 episodes of all the bad things that him and Tess have done and what they're capable of, according to Marlene, who is, there's 2 things. I know, John, you don't want to talk a whole lot about comparisons between the video game and the series, but there's 2 things I'm going to say. I like the fact that the same actress who did Marlene in the video game is Marlene in the show. Fantastic actress. So I really enjoyed seeing her. And then I honestly think the way that they did Tess's death in the show is a lot better than how they did in the video game.
Memorable.
Because I did get to that point. I'm about a quarter of the way through the game, and I won't, to avoid spoilers for anyone else out there who may be listening, I won't say at what point I'm at. But Tess's death in the video game, it's not the Swarm, but Fedra who stormed the State House, and she ends up in a OK Corral type shootout with Fedra and ends up getting shot in order to allow Joel and Ellie to escape. So I thought the way they did it in the show was actually a lot more well done than it was. Kind of not lame, but kind of more blasé how she went out in the video game. So I definitely, give them a lot of respect for making it a lot more heart-wrenching than what it actually was. But
yeah, that's the nice thing about the television show in any game, right? I mean, so I haven't played this particular game, but I've played tons of video games, especially very narrative-driven games. And the show obviously allows expansion of, lots of things. When you're in a game, right, you kind of want to play. You want to be in the game. So you like cutscenes, but you want them just not to dominate. And so the show gives a chance to expand on all those things and give you a little more oomph there. And to that vein, what you talked about previously, I would say the 2 cold opens have been some of the most memorable parts for me and some of the most jarring portions, right? So it does a good job of not just setting up the episode and giving us some, information, but the pre-pandemic, so the 1968, first of all, shout out to Big Head. I don't know if either of you watched Silicon Valley, the comedy also.
No, I never have.
Hilarious. He was the moderator, that actor.
Okay.
But anyways, but so yeah, that conversation, again, to your point, right? We just, I guess you could say we're past the pandemic. Who knows? I see a new, variant coming around. So I don't know if we can say we're past it, but either way, talking about basically, the virologist was, this is what's going to happen. This is the normal, and basically described kind of COVID. And then the other guy coming in and saying, yeah, that's not the one I worry about. The one I worry about basically is the one we don't have any defense for. The one that
if it happens, we lose.
Right. And to the point that, it's just all it takes is evolution and the planet to get warmer. And it's like, oh, that's 1968. That's cool. We're 2023. Planet's getting warmer. So
right.
Here it comes. And then part 2, the doctor, her scene was unbelievably haunting. When she sits down, she's like, all right, what do you got? And she was like, tell me what happened. And he's like, well, she got bit at this factory and she bit these other 3 people. And she's like, who bit her? And he goes, oh, I don't know. And she goes, great, bomb it, bomb everything. Basically, she's like, kill us all. I want to go home with my family because I want to be with them when you bomb the shit out of us.
And it was gut-wrenching, like the sheer, pain and terror in her eyes about knowing she knew exactly what was going to happen, but there's no way that she could accurately describe it. And so she said, bomb everything. And unfortunately, like they even allude when they're walking through Boston, oh, this is where they bombed everything. Sadly, it didn't work.
Right.
For all of that death, destruction that countries had to inflict upon their own people in order to try and stop this, it didn't work.
Yeah. Boston is a city that I know very well, and seeing the Massachusetts Turnpike with a post-apocalyptic traffic jam going on there with abandoned cars and them having to travel along it, it was a pretty haunting scene. And then of course the state house.
Mhm.
I thought it was really interesting that the building that they had the scene in with the museum, it reminded me a lot of the old state capitol in Boston. I don't think the Bostonian's a real museum, but it was a, a type of museum I had been in, and I'm just picturing the whole thing, just thinking how horrifying that entire scene was. And then I was picturing it because was not to that point in the game, thinking about how it would have been in the game, and I'm like, man, as soon as this show is over, I'm going back and playing that game.
Yeah,
But,
that
well, and even saying like, and I 100% agree, Kevin. I've been to Boston a couple times, and seeing the State House, which is a place I visited,
Yeah.
seeing what the QZ wall is right along Congress, which is a street I've been on, so I'm like, it's really weird, and I think going forward, if we start seeing some of these other things that happen, like, and that's kind of what makes it more real, is seeing like, oh, I've actually been to this place, and just to see it wrecked and ruined, it's crazy.
And I know it's HBO, but the production value has been incredibly good on this show.
Yeah.
They are not pulling anything at all off the table as far as how they're doing it. I mean, going into that hotel, wading through and then going up flights of stairs and then trying to get across, like the entire thing looked very, very real the way they did it. And that includes the scenes of the turnpike and all the other places in Boston. I mean, it was an amazing cinematic experience, I feel like.
Yeah, I thought, to your point, episode 2 felt more like a video game than episode 1 was fantastic. Both of them were great, but episode 2 felt like a video game.
Yeah.
When you're talking about being in the museum,
Okay.
I was, oh, this is a video game. I've played not this game, but I've played this type of game with the stealth, and you're trying to be quiet, you're trying to move, and you're like, all right, wait, not yet. Okay, now go over there, and try not to hit something. You hit guns blazing, let's go.
I played that scene, and when they were walking up to the museum, I'm like, oh shit.
Like, oh, where is everyone? It's like, well, I got 3 guesses for you. I hope you only need 1.
Yeah.
Here it comes. And then the cinematics, right? So the shot that you're talking about, Kev, as well, when they walk out and the first time Ellie, especially like us, the viewer, sees that shot of just decrepit buildings, a skyscraper leaning into another one. Same thing. I've only been to Boston once, but it was very recent. I went in December. And so a lot of that's still very fresh in my mind because I was there. I walked through all that. I've been in those buildings. I just saw all of that. And to see it rendered so, I guess, beautifully is an odd choice for, decrepit buildings and overgrowth, but to see it so beautifully on the screen was crazy. I do want to go back real quick though. So that opening. So one thing I had heard about the game before was, right, like the opening gets you and it hooks you. Watching the show, I could not have agreed more and thought, boy, if the game is even a quarter like this, talk about Sarah, Joel's actual daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like you, Kevin. So I hadn't played the game and I was like, this does not look like Bella Ramsey. This is not the girl on the poster. What the hell? I didn't know she died originally. So I'm just watching going, I don't know what's going on, but can we hurry this up? But it was so captivating immediately. And so much happened. And when she did get shot and he was sitting there, hold on, baby girl. And, Tommy could see it like, hey man, it's over. And he's still trying, really flailing to, no, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. I know it hurts. And it was so emotional. I was like, damn, like, what are we 20 minutes into this episode? This is nuts. And then immediately the flash forward 20 years later, now he's just burning bodies, cold expression, including the kid. The girl's like, oh, I can't with this kid. He's like, fuck it.
That was a crazy scene though. Like when that little kid, that boy walks up and then goes in and they're like, oh yeah, and they find out he's infected. So like, and they end up euthanizing. It makes it all real because you just saw this kid alive. Well, then now he's dead and just thrown into this fire. And it's honestly, it's gut wrenching. And that's honestly, it's the point. And but it's so well done to where, yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I saw the scene in the video game and I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, if this is how this game's going to be, I don't know if I can do this.
That's the point at which I remember stopping the game. And
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of the cutscenes of the flash forward, and I was like, I'm not sure this is for me. I don't want to be doing this right now. I think I had a young child a very young child at the time, and I was like, I don't know about this. But I think the acting, as good as the production value and how they've been able to meld the regular effects with any of the CGI that they might be doing, the acting has been absolutely top notch. And I'm not just talking about Pascal, and I'm not just talking about some of the other more veteran but the whole top to bottom. I haven't seen anything that I was like, man.
Well, and Sarah, like the actress, I remember like at the end of episode 1 where they were talking, they interviewed, I can't remember the actress's name who played Sarah, but she they were talking a lot with her about
Nico
how
Parker.
her relation, and like I think you're gonna see a lot more of her, I think.
I hope so.
Yeah, because she was fantastic in that, and I can't wait to see where she goes from here, even though and that's crazy about somebody who is, her time in the show is so short.
Right.
But she's going to have a long lasting impact into the whole rest of the series. I think that I really hope we see a lot more of her, maybe even some flashbacks. I kind of hope we see some flashbacks that she comes back and helps film, but even just following her, she's an actress that I'm going to follow.
I hope that they, at this point, it's one of those go out on top. I hope she doesn't come back. I hope they don't show it. I hope, you know what I mean? She, in her limited time, impacted. I think anything now will dilute it. I mean, think about like what we saw, right? Her entire little arc on the show was basically an inversion of the parent-child relationship, because it seemed very much like she's taking care of him, not vice versa.
Right?
Her only goal is, hey man, it's your birthday. Can you not work another double? By the way, I'm going to fix this watch that you clearly care about, but don't care enough to get it fixed for you, even though I took the money to pay for it. But, here's your gift, which is funny because him wearing it, obviously, in the future. And it's one of the first things Ellie says to him, hey, your watch is broken, by the way. A little shot that she doesn't know. That hurts. And then she visits the neighbor, and then next thing you know, and we're going, right? And then it's action-packed, then she's shot, and then that's it. And in all of that, you get the relationship that we feel, sadness that she's gone. Mm-hmm. Relationship between her and Joel in an instant, which you then see, you see the start, right? So to Kevin's point about it being slow, you see it a little bit start, right? He sees the soldier, the federal soldier, raise the rifle at her, and he steps in front. Nope, not again. Not going to do this again. Right. And the rage just take over, and he beats the man to death with his hands, basically blacking out and just, I'm not going to let another child be done. When she tries to ask him questions, where you from? Where's Tess from? Are you guys?
Pass. Yeah.
I'm not going to let you get in because I can't get attached to another person, because at this point, my daughter's gone. My brother's now not answering. And it sounds like he got caught up in the fireflies. As he said out, break that guy's jaw. He was like, you talk about the light, I'll break your jaw. Right. I'm like, he's clearly at this point about as jaded as any one man can get. Again, he's not even responding to throwing children on a pyre. His only question is, what more work do you have and how much does it pay? And so
I'll do whatever it takes to get as much ration cards as I can, because that's currency in that world. And well, even going to your point about how, he blames Marlene for his brother leaving. So it's, I hope we see more of Marlene. Like, I don't know if we will, but I hope we do.
I took it she died. My take was she was shot. I think so. Shot. I think she was done. And I think that was the point about can you take her? I'm clearly going to die. It's not looking good on our end.
That's what it seemed
she
like.
Could bounce
it was
back.
A mortal wound.
It's a flesh wound. It's a flesh wound.
9 episodes, but their end goal is to get to Wyoming. Now, I don't know that they'll get a car, but going from Boston to Wyoming,
it's going to be a ways.
That's a bit. That's a bit. So,
well, and even what the radio guy said is there's slavers, there's bandits, it's your worst Fallout nightmare, between here and there. So
my nightmare is still when she said, "Oh, by the way, the fungus grows underground and they basically can talk to each other. So if you encounter an infected in one spot, you can have a whole horde
miles away." Yeah.
Alerted and come out, which obviously what we saw in episode 2. To me, that's the craziest. When he was stopping and he was checking that and he was like, "Oh, okay, it looks dead." It was like, good God, any step outside of the QZ or any QZ, and you have to watch where you step. Like, I don't know about you. I don't often look down as I'm walking. I just kind of keep it moving. So if I had to avoid, roots and stuff like that, like
walking on eggshells for 1,000 miles. Yeah.
My guess is you would learn to adjust, but
yeah.
And I was starting to doing some reading on the different forms of the zombies too, and wondering, what kind of rule set they were going to use for this world. Is there going to be a fear of water like there often is with zombies, and on and on, but they really haven't gotten into it too much yet. But there's a few different levels of zombie that it seems like they start off pretty creepy, but man, they get epically more creepy as they go.
I didn't know there were rules to zombies.
Oh sure.
Is this like an Isaac Asimov thing with like robots, or?
Well, it's just usually when they do a zombie movie, you end up with a certain rules about how the zombies are. They're slow, or they're fast, or they're afraid of water, or
I never heard about the afraid of water thing. Like, okay, so I watched a little bit of Romero, Night of the Living Dead and stuff like that, and then I watched a little bit of Walking Dead, but it wasn't 100% my thing. So I guess maybe I'm just not zombified enough.
I've never seen 1 minute of Walking Dead, and that's not because I wasn't a little bit interested, but because I have a wife who really doesn't isn't interested in it.
Fair enough.
So yeah, we've always gravitated to other stuff. I've got to really want to watch something if she's not interested, and I just wasn't. It didn't trip my trigger that much.
Well, what I like about this show, and I'll talk a little bit about The Walking Dead in terms of it had something similar that drew me in, is that it's not about the zombies, right? The focus of at least The Last of Us so far clearly seems like it's going to be this relationship between Joel and Ellie. So I like that, right? It's a relationship dynamic. The Walking Dead, the hook, the reason that got me was it wasn't about like, oh, we have to find a cure, oh, we have to kill them all. It was, we just have to survive. And that, the most horrific things are other people. FYI, so I only watched the first season of the television show. It was okay. Season 2 got boring, but the comic book was fantastic. So I highly recommend reading the Walking Dead comic. And obviously, if your wife doesn't like you, don't have to share with her with that one. But so
I have the first omnibus. I need to actually sit down and read it.
It's very good. I would recommend it. But so here, so first of all, Kevin, don't read ahead or look ahead and see.
No, I won't.
But I think we have seen in the trailer, I think we've seen some other versions of zombies. But, Joel's character does make mention of it because Ellie asks about the infected. First, I thought it was, poignant. She goes, do you feel bad? And he was like, what, about killing them? Yeah, they used to be people. Do you feel anything? And he's like, I guess a little bit. And then she asked him about like, oh, well, how does the infected go? And he's like, it could be a month or two. Some of them have been out there for 20 years. You know what I mean? You see that infection, it grows and grows. So I think we'll get, again, I haven't played it, but like a video game, you usually have mini bosses, you have various levels.
What's their first boss battle? Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It will come into something. I'm just glad that the show doesn't seem as preoccupied, about that. I mean, look, they got the clickers and they were eliminated fairly quickly and in one episode. So it's not.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of your, that's where a lot of your stuff, your best series and your best, stuff comes in, where it's not as about, in here, it's not about the zombies, or in Walking Dead, it's not about the zombies. It's a story of civilization. Another one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Battlestar Galactica, it's about the story of the survivors. It's a story of civilization. And I think as long as they can keep that focus, I think it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to have a little bit extra, understanding for, what the world was going to be like that they were portraying. But it reminds me of, later years with the Borg on Star Trek, Next Generation. Like, yeah, you feel a little bit bad, but there's no coming back from the form that they're in. So I know it sounds easy, to speak about it when, if it, God forbid, it was really real. I'm sure it would be difficult, but again, there's no coming back from where they're at. So
so would you say the infected is more like a sympathetic villain?
Yeah, I would say so.
We couldn't get one episode without talking about Star Trek. We're not even on Grey 17.
We need a buzzer.
We still did it.
Yeah, that's a trope that we've seen, or at least, I can think of a couple examples off the top in zombie movies, right? It's always someone in the party gets bit, doesn't tell anybody, then they turn and there's I can't do it, or I can do it. Can I put them down, blah, blah, blah. As they get more infected, right, the more they get mushroom head, the easier it is because then they don't even, not even looking like people, right? It's the one where, if Joel.
Within hours, like it's not even just an eventual turn, it's within a couple hours you're lost. So that's the question of like, if I ever get bit, I want you to shoot me, or something like that. It's honestly like if you're bit, you're toast and you're going to be attacking people within a very short period. Like the rapidity of it is fascinating. Like the whole chart that they have when the kid is wheeled in there in the Fedra room, and they're showing within 45 minutes it affects your brain. Within an hour and a half it's got control of and within 2 hours it's got control of your whole body and you're completely lost. Like honestly, I want to actually learn more about the science behind it because I think it's fascinating.
So I read an article. Obviously, lots of people like you, Justin, were like, "Wait, how real is this?" And a couple of those doctors were saying there's some, validity to it. It's very far off. Most of what I saw were very I can't really see it in humans. But there's one guy he studies basically something similar in cicadas and was saying that cicada gets it. It does basically like that in the cicadas version. It takes a hold of your mind and it immediately tries to mate as much as it can. And that's how it spreads while it just dissolves the inside of you at the back. Then there's obviously the ants that we've seen, or that I'm sure most people know that it affects their brain. They immediately climb as high as they can into a tree because then they burst as all of that fungi comes out and those spores drop onto the ants below and it keeps the cycle going and blah, blah, blah. So I wouldn't lose any sleep over it jumping into humans in our lifetime or anytime soon. But it's close enough, right? And especially the one thing they did say was that because it's so far-fetched at this point, even though there is a little, they said there's some temperature raises. They're seeing them last in higher temps, but it's not anything. It's close. But
I'm not saying I'm losing sleep about it. It's not something that I'm going to sit here and worry about. I just think it's interesting. Just how realistic it is. But
usually this is the kind of thing where I'm jumping on Google and doing a bunch of reading on, and for whatever reason this has me more freaked out that I'm just not interested in reading about the cordyceps and fungus and all that stuff. Like I started reading about the one candida that has been spreading through hospitals and nursing homes and whatnot, and I was like, man, that's bad enough. Let's hope that nothing else happens.
So
the scientists know what they're doing to battle it.
We didn't talk a lot about Tommy, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what you saw of him, because it actually took me 2 watches of the first episode to realize that Tommy's the Desert Storm vet, not Joel. When I first
it's Tommy's truck, yeah.
Oh yeah, Joel's the vet. So I was like, oh, they're setting that up, right? So he'll be handy with a weapon. He'll be handy with this. And then the second rewatch, I was like, wait, that's Tommy's truck. Tommy's soldier. Joel is just the everyman, the contractor or whatever. So we haven't gotten a lot of Tommy, but he obviously is very important. He showed up when he needed to. He saved Joel's life. There's a case to be made maybe that I guess maybe Sarah wouldn't have. I don't know if I would say she wouldn't have died, but if Tommy wasn't in jail, who knows what happens, I guess I would say.
Right. Yeah, I guess I didn't pick up on that. I was assuming that Joel was a combat veteran, but you hope that flash forward 20 years later, and it seems like he can handle himself pretty well. So
yeah, he picked up on it. It was interesting as well when they were listening, right? You hear that first radio report and it talks about something like, it's almost like an offhanded comment about, oh, something's going on in Jakarta, but also the local to blah, blah, blah. Like it did remind me a lot of the beginning of coronavirus. So I tend to read the news pretty voraciously and like a lot. And I remember the first articles like that, where it was like, oh, this respiratory illness or this illness in China. And it was kind of a throwaway article, real, very short. And then it was like, oh, well, now it's kind of spread. Well, now cases have been reported in Europe. Again, very mild. I don't really worry about it. Then the first couple of cases is like, even in America, it was like, oh, it's made it here, but we still don't, it's still fine. And then almost like an instant, it was like, oh, by the way, it's terrible. You're going home. Like my job was like, we're sending everybody home. Don't panic, but please stay away from people. Go inside. Don't. Right. It's like, good God. I don't know if that's an indictment of America, like it's news or it's what people want to hear, because, they were driving the car and it was just like, oh, something's popping in Jakarta. And they were like, next.
The number of times that we've had, something like that, that they've been able to contain with, a lot of support from, CDC and whatever else, you figure, okay, well, they'll find some way and it's going to be like it was before. And, you can even say that about, some of the snowstorms, like they're like, it's kind of the reverse. They're like, oh my God, it's the apocalypse. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. So, people tend to not get worried until they need to be, but it did make me kind of want to go buy a few cans of unperishable food. I'm not gonna lie.
All of a sudden, Kevin's a prepper. But honestly, like and you know what, and you know what, it's the classic story of the boy who cries wolf. We always hear a lot of these stories every time there's a snowstorm, and we just had this a few days ago here in Indianapolis. Oh, it's a huge snowstorm coming. It's, and we got maybe a couple inches. Like it's the snowpocalypse that every system that comes through. So I can understand why people would not necessarily believe, all the stuff that they're hearing. But at the same time, like, it's very cool how in the show they made a point of having just enough background noise to show you how it's progressing. And then just, she goes in the watch shop to have her father's, watch fixed. And you start seeing ambulances coming through. And then she's walking outside and jets are roaring. Like, it's a slow escalation. But it's just enough to be noticed to where, shit's really starting to go down. And then by the time that it really starts to hit, then it's already too late. By the time anybody takes it seriously, like even Joel's neighbor, he's like, Denise, get back inside. It's already too late for a lot of people, because as soon as they start to pull away, which that whole scene within the truck is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And well done. And one last comparison between the show and the video game is when they're driving through and you see the burning house. It's just how kind of slow it is as they're looking at that house burning. And that just, it's at 100%, a lot of that is identical to what actually happens in the video game. And to me, it represents, like, that house burning is the world. Everything's just burning down and you're powerless to stop it. And it's like I've got goosebumps right now just talking about it, because it's just powerful. And I really can't say enough about how well this show's been written. Like,
beginning was it was engrossing. To your point about it creeping up, right? We follow Sarah through her day. She's in the watch up. The wife is like, nope, shut it down, it's closed. You can see clearly she's hearing something. Again, you mentioned all the things happening in the background. Meanwhile, Sarah just keeps going on her day, right? She goes home, she visits the neighbors are none the wiser. And Sarah doesn't even see the creepy shit that the old lady does behind her. The dog's the only one in on the spin. It's just like,
but dogs tried to warn everybody, like, guys, this bitch is wrong.
Yeah. And so it was haunting. One other thing I wanted to talk about as well, it was Ellie. So I will say, children actors. Now I love Bella Ramsey, obviously from Game of Thrones. She was fantastic.
Solo.
Yeah. So I wasn't necessarily worried about her acting, but sometimes child actors can be hit or miss and can be the drag on the show. She has been thus far great. And I really like her take. What could be grating or annoying when you get like that punky little kid who's like, fuck you, or like, oh, I'm tough, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it doesn't work. In this instance, I think what really works is, you have to keep in mind and remember that this is the only world she's ever known. So she has grown up in this. So sometimes when she asks questions, or like when she's in the hotel and she's like playing, because she's like, well, I've never been in a hotel. I've never got to see this. And like, her story, how she got bit, she was playing in the mall. She wanted to see what that was like and try to discover this. I think, it does two things. I mean, it makes you feel bad. Again, because you're like, damn, this has been her whole world. And then two, you understand her pluckiness a little bit, right? Now, she says she was given to, Marlene gave her to Fedra. So she was being kind of raised as a soldier. So you kind of get her, ability there. Although it was funny, Joel dispatched her immediately, almost like a gnat when she tried to stab him. But you can see why, she's quick to give the finger or say this and that, right? I mean, when you grow up in that world, it's not quite the same as the world we grew up in. So I think she's been great so far. She hasn't annoyed me, I guess, yet. It seems like it's going to be a really fun pairing. And, she also hasn't done that thing where she's been the annoying, like, oh, the kid's into it again. Or the kid's the reason we have another horde, or the kid's the reason we're getting attacked. Or, she had the one little bit, but like otherwise she's also in on like, okay, I'm in, I'll be quiet and I'll contribute. I'm not just a liability the entire time. So I was excited. I've been excited to see that.
Yeah, no one wants to be the Natalia in the GoldenEye game for sure.
Jesus. God damn it, Kevin. But honestly, like, if you look, a perfect view of the dynamic of what is going to develop, I think, between these two is looking at the scene of, and we keep talking, we really haven't talked a whole lot about the second episode yet, but in the first episode where, that soldier who Joel was dealing drugs to confronts them, and Joel's instincts kicks in, like we all have said, I'm not gonna lose another one, and he beats the guy to death, and the look on Ellie's face to where she and I think even like in the after part where there were, the creators and directors were talking about the episode section of it, said that she not only like was desensitized to it, but she kind of enjoyed it.
Right. It's new. It's novel.
And it's the people who've grown up post collapse. It's got to be a really hard, shitty life. Like, so like, honestly, she may not have any sensitivity to any of the death and destruction that's going on. Whereas you see opposite of that, like if you see Ellie's reaction to Joel beating the shit out of this guy, and then you go back to Sarah's reaction to Joel clocking the old lady, and Sarah was just like, oh my God, you killed her. Like, those two reactions between those two different characters tells you just how much of a collapse has happened in the human, not only just in society, but in the human psyche, to where something like this doesn't even faze Ellie at all.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned episode 2, I did want to also talk about Tess a little bit. So, to Kevin's point, the same way, as soon as I saw her, I mean, I love that actress, but I kept going.
Great actress. Great show.
She's not on the poster. So I was like, TikTok, I don't know when she's meeting her in, but
right.
It happens sooner. And then, but I thought she got, again, I haven't played the game, so I can't make comparisons. I've heard, this and that, but I thought she got a pretty fair shake. I thought, she definitely, my take from her was she's definitely a badass. I mean, when you get double crossed and they've got you tied up and they're worried about letting you go because they don't want to get killed, because they don't want you to get your killed, like when they're scared of you and they beat the shit out of you, you're something, right? So I definitely was taken away with the impression like she's not someone to fuck with. She's clearly good at whatever scavenging situation she has going on with Joel. And then, his recoil when she approached him after she was bit, and then her request that, I haven't asked you for anything, not even basically to reciprocate my feelings for you. I felt bad for her, in that instance, right? She's like, hey, the QZ is not my home. And it's clearly someone who, was tough like that because she had to be, but would have preferred not to be, and was looking for a way to get out of that and thought she had found someone, that the Firefly Satan, right, in the darkness looked for the light. It seemed like she thought Joel could be her light. They could get away and they could be each other's light. And then to have it end like it did, which again, I will just continue to say, it is the creepiest thing I have ever seen. I am not a gore guy, but I would much rather them have like ripped out her neck than the slow, impending, intimate fucking fungi makeouts.
Yeah, that was gross. Man, she should have had a Zippo. I mean, that thing would have lit the first time and she would have been done.
He had a gun. Shoot one of the grenades.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I was just like, what are you doing? Anytime now. Ugh, it was now I did or hear something. I think maybe someone at work, I was chatting with it and they were like, because I was like, I don't understand, how come they didn't just like immediately swarm her? And somebody posited that, oh, well, she was already infected, so they could sense she was infected. So it was like, oh, well, we're just one and the same, let's just make a connection. Either way, fighting back again, popping off around at the grenades. I just the mouth in the cold open when they pulled the out of the mouth, and then when I was like, God damn, it's
so that tells you though, that's gonna be an important thing going forward. With what she pulled it out and it was still moving at her, and that's what freaked her out. And then you see the same thing then when that runner does that to Tess, and it just branches out. Keep watching for that, because that's going to become a common theme about how it grows from there. So I just think it's going to be more important as the show goes on.
Well, hopefully we don't have it. I mean, it was a good shot, don't get me wrong. Visually, the director, I understand why they put it in, because we're talking about like this. It was a haunting shot. You're
going to have more of it, John. I'm sorry to break your bubble, but you're going to have more of it.
We saw them bite, and we saw it come out of the grandpa, right? So I knew that was a thing. It was less the coming out of the zombie's mouth and more just because it was so slow, you could just see it very slowly go into her mouth. It was going into her mouth. It was just creeping me out. I was like, I can't.
Well, but also remember when Joel's daughter walks in and the old lady's feeding on the other people, you see those tendrils in her mouth as well. So like, those tendrils are going to be very important, because now it's 1, 2, 3 major times we've seen it in 2 episodes.
It's not the coming out that gets me. It's the going in that gets me. I'm a real, I don't know.
Honestly, John, I'm not going to question your gag reflex, but
I was waiting for someone to make that joke. It's the, and I'd rather have gotten latched onto my neck than, ugh. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to the next little section?
No, go on.
All right. So one of the things we wanted to do here that I suggested was we'll have each of our thoughts on who won the episode, and that can mean whatever you want it to mean, and then reciprocally who lost the episode. So Justin, I'll start with you.
So overall between the first two episodes,
I'm gonna give a winner and loser for both. FYI.
okay, so for both episodes, all right. Episode 1. Honestly, I think the winner in episode 1 is still the infected. It's still very much their world. Everyone else just living in it. So it's one of those things where you see kind of what a reduced humanity looks like. And especially when is Fedra really that big of an enemy? I really don't know, but I think the infected are the winners of episode 1 because they conquered the planet. And the loser, I think, is, I guess, not to be really overly sympathetic, but I think the loser is, in the first episode at least, is humanity. Because it's all setting the stage. Episode 1 was setting the stage. Going into episode 2, honestly, I think probably out of episode 2, I want to say the winner is probably Joel, because he's actually the sole survivor. He's the sole survivor tasked to protecting Ellie and getting her out west, where he doesn't even really know what that means, but getting her out to wherever she needs to go. And then the loser of episode 2, I would probably have to say would be the infected.
Oh, it took a turn.
Yeah, it took a little bit of a turn because now you have the infected note. I mean, look at Joel and the whole thing in the first episode of everybody knows what Joel's capable of, and we're finally starting to see some of that. And I think probably the reason why I would say the infected is a loser is because it's going to be a very interesting dichotomy, not only with, Joel and Ellie, but them versus the world. And I think that you're going to see a lot of the infected may sometimes win, and Joel and Ellie may sometimes win. But I think in episode 2, Joel and Ellie definitely beat the infected, and especially with the devastation that Tess caused by basically blowing up the Capitol building. So,
all right, Kev.
And scene.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the fungus won the first episode big time. I mean, they took over the planet, much like a certain virus that shall remain nameless. But the loser of the first episode, yeah, humanity. I'm gonna go with that too. Second episode, the winner of that, man, not much of a winner for that one. Loser would definitely, I guess, be, well, all right, I'll say Tess won the first one. I mean, she took care of business and was able to make their escape worthwhile. So I'll say Tess won the second episode, and the loser also Tess.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I figured she wasn't going to make it longer in the series, but man, it would have been nice.
So it's funny, Kev. So I have some similarities. So I think Sarah won episode 1. So for me, it's not like, when I think of who won the episode, I think what was the most enduring and or most memorable part of episode 1. I think it was Sarah. I think it was.
Oh.
I think as the actress, I mean, I could give it back and forth, maybe 1A, 1B, the character, the actress. I think what she was able to do again in such a short time was incredible. I think that was super easy to mess up. And even though I know they have a game to go off of, right, I'm sure they have a script. And to Justin's point, in some instances, I'm sure it was shot for shot, the same thing. You still have to act that, right? You still have to make us get all of those feelings, draw us in, and set up a bunch of shit to happen for future episodes. So I picked Sarah as my winner of episode 1. And as my loser of episode 1, I picked Joel. My man had a tough beat throughout all of episode 1, right? So he has to go bail his brother out of jail, forgets to get the cake for his own birthday, sees
Right.
gets shot basically in his arms. She dies. 20 years later, he's, the last of his family because he can't even get a hold of his brother. He's burning bodies for ration cards. He gets double crossed on a battery deal. My man's just taking L's all episode. So he was my loser of the first one. For the second one, Kev, I agree with you. Actually, I wrote down Tess as both my winner and my loser. I thought that, again, as I mentioned with Anna Torv, the actress, I thought that character was presented extremely well. You immediately got, she's a badass. She's with Joel. She's going to be great. She's exactly what they're going to need. And then to the loser point, it's like, yeah, and then you made out with an infected, and that sucks and is gross. And so you died, and I didn't think you had to. Again, just pop one round into any of those grenades. Actually, as a little bit of a side real quick, why did Joel not take any of that shit? They in the State House, they had crates full of, because I'm thinking video games, right? So when you're there, you're like, oh, I got to stop.
Well, honestly, so good side point. So, Paulina will sit there and has watched me play this game before. And she honestly the other day goes, is this all the game is about, is walking around and collecting stuff? No, that's just how I play it. I'm a scavenger. I go and I find and collect all the things. So yeah, the fact that he left all of that ammunition and everything behind was like,
it's like, man, you could have been beast mode if you had taken all that stuff.
You're gonna need that. You're gonna need that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's a video. It's real life, not a video game, right? You only have so much you can carry, and you don't really want to carry a bunch.
Right.
But Ellie was asking for a gun. You just see crates of all of this clearly very useful shit, and you took none of it and let her blow it all up.
Right.
Maybe that should be the L. Maybe Joel should take another L for not any of it. So, all right. Lastly, and before we wrap up, a little take, something we do on Grey 17, slightly tweaked. What are your hopes and prediction, right? So what do you think is going to happen, but what do you hope is going to happen in episode 3? Let's start with.
I hope we see, some of the, open land, and see more of the fallen society. I think that was one of the things that struck me about the second episode. So I hope we see some more of that. And as I mentioned earlier, I want to see some good development of the relationship between Joel and what's her name? I'm sorry. Bella Ramsey's character.
Ellie,
thank you.
Justin?
Well, we've already seen the preview for episode 3. We know we're going to meet Bill, played by Nick Offerman, who is somebody I absolutely love. So I honestly cannot wait for Sunday's episode, just based on the, not trying to spoil anything from the video game, but I think Nick Offerman is going to do absolutely fantastic in this show. And I think, honestly, I think you're going to see a little bit more development of a character development, bonding between both Joel and Ellie. And I really don't think you're going to see, I think you're going to see more Ellie opening more than Joel, but we'll see. We'll see how the show decides to progress from here.
I hope he's exactly like Ron Swanson.
The trailer was interesting. So I will say for myself, I hope that we get another bone-chilling cold open that takes place pre-pandemic, so I can just keep living in that fear. And then I also hope that, to your point, I hope Illinois' own Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman, is as fantastic as he is in everything I've seen. I don't know if you guys watched the Fargo television show. He was in one of those seasons. I think season 2 was fantastic. But he's great in everything.
Honestly, all hail to Pawnee, Indiana. So
I'm excited for that. So I hope he does fantastic as usual. I know Tess actually mentioned them, right? They threw it away, take her to Frank's place. So it's obviously, again, from the trailer, we see it's two of them. It seems like, based on the trailer, we might get the cold open might be Bill and Frank pre-pandemic and then Bill and Frank current day. So that would be an interesting little dichotomy as well. So thank you, Justin. I have people heard that, those were characters, but this is going to be a much more expanded look at them. So as we mentioned previously, again, something that the show can do that the game probably didn't want or have abilities to do.
I can't wait to see how the show handles it. That's going to be something that I'm going to enjoy, I think.
What I hope doesn't happen is, like I said, I hope, there's only 9 episodes, so we're about to be a third of the way done. I hope it has enough legs to grow. So my thought is, and we can use this as the very last kind of little piece to wrap up. It seemed like season 1 was going to be the first game, and then season 2 will be the second game. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, because it seems like there's a lot to do in these next 7 episodes, and they're about an hour each. So it's not an insignificant amount of time. But as I just spent, since we do have the snow, the last day or two binging other shows, 10 episodes, 9 episodes, not as long or as much as you would like or you would hope. So my hope is they really don't cram this in, and that if it needs to grow, then do 2 seasons to tell 1 game. That's fine.
Well, but they don't do a season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And just,
Again, they're going to Wyoming.
No.
They're going to Blink, and it's like, well, Bill and Frank live in Idaho. It's like, wait, what? They got there.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. And I really don't think they're going to go that route with this. The only thing that I'm concerned about is they may just, I don't want to say bum rush, but they just cut through a lot of stuff to try and get to a certain point in the story. But I really don't think it's going to happen. I think that they're going to really stay within a certain true path and get to because there's only 2 video games, honestly, that they have to go off of. So it's a lot of limited material. So I think that they're gonna I think within, as you get further into season 1, I really think that they're going to have to take a lot more creative liberty with the story. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So we'll see.
Kevin, any final thoughts?
I gotta believe that, a show that's been, this good for 2 episodes is going to be able to stay good for 9. So I'm excited to see the rest of it. I haven't been quite this excited about, a thriller type show in quite a while. So it's been wild already, and it's only been 2 episodes.
I agree. Justin, any last thoughts?
I mean, 100% a huge fan. I mean, that's it. And I can't wait to see where they go from here. And it's going to be a fun ride. It's really going to be a fun ride. So, like, even if it's just 9 episodes in the first season, I can't wait to see what season 2 and hopefully a season 3 comes to fruition. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm the same. We can wrap it up there. I am enjoying it so far. I don't know if it'll be good or bad that I'll play the game after I've seen the show. Everything's got its pros and cons, right? Do you watch the movie before you read the book?
Right.
Vice versa. So I'm just happy to be along with the ride. Happy to be talking about it with you guys. As always, you can catch us, the 3 of us, on Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. Dropping every Wednesday. I am not sure when we will drop this. The hope is we're recording this on a Saturday. The hope is to get it out on a Monday, but don't hold us to that. But what we will try to do from here on out now is try to get this show out at least the same week that the episode airs. So we'll be on pace with The Last of Us. So thank you if you've stuck around this long. Thank you if you're going to come back. Again, I am the Chuckle Nugget, which you'll only get if you see our other show, which I suggest you check out. John, and with me,
I'm Justin, and I'm one of the newbies on Grade 17. And definitely please like, subscribe, join our Facebook page, do whatever you can to, like us and support us, because we're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun enjoying Babylon 5 for the first time, and we're having fun enjoying Last of Us for the first time. So, jump on, join the train, and enjoy the ride.
And I'm Kevin. I'm one of the first ones on Grade 17 Babylon 5 podcast, and really been enjoying our conversations, especially on I'm most active on Facebook, and that's been a great conversation on there. So jump on there and give us your thoughts on Babylon 5. Thanks a lot for listening.
thanks everybody.